the Confederate phase, or the Army of Tennessee phase, of the 1500 turn of Scenario 2 of Barren Victory. Let's go to our sequence of play here. And the first thing the Confederate player will have the opportunity to do is to issue new orders. Um, here I should clear up a mistake I made in a previous video. I actually intended to send Bragg not to Preston, but rather to the headquarters of Buckner's Corps, of which Preston's division is one division of Buckner's Corps. And the reason I'm doing it that way is my intention is to send Buckner and Buckner's HQ along with Preston's division into its movement down here. And so in order to do that, Bragg would need to issue an in-person order. For that to happen, Bragg would need to go to Buckner and Buckner's Corps HQ in order to do that. Now, as it turns out, it's still less than 10 leader movement points from the Army of Tennessee headquarters where Bragg started to here, so I could still get here in one move. So Bragg is really starting this 1500 turn here at Buckner's Corps headquarters. So what I'm going to do now, again going back to our sequence of play, is to issue new orders to Buckner. So let's go to our acceptance chart. And look at our formula for calculating the acceptance value. So Bragg's rating is a 0, leader rating is a 0, Buckner's is a 1, so we're at +1 so far. It's a written order, that's 0, so we're still at 1. In person is +2, so we're now at 3. However, this is a complex order because it's an order that's going to allow Buckner's Corps to engage the enemy as needed to complete its goal. So we take 2 off of that and that puts us at 1. And there's an additional, this is a game specific rule, there's an additional -2 anti-initiative, anti-acceptance rating that exists between Buckner and Bragg. So that takes us down to a -1. So when it comes time to determine whether this order will be accepted or not, we'll be rolling on the -1 to -2 column. But for now, if we go to our Confederate orders chart, I'm going to say that this order arrived at 1500 because again it's issued in person, and very shortly we will roll for acceptance when we get to the proper step in the sequence of play. And maybe this is a good time for me to say I also corrected an error that I put into the chart on a previous video. Earlier I said that the order was, it said it was a D1 result, order accepted on D6 = 1, which is contradictory. It was really a D2 result, so I cleared that up as well. So let's go back to our sequence of play. So we've issued our new orders for the day, or for the turn. No core attack stoppage checks to be made. Let's see, is there anyone on the Confederate side who could roll for initiative? No one I want to roll for initiative. Delay reduction. So here's the point where we'll remember the order to Hood that we sent on previous turns has arrived at headquarters, and it's the order I just mentioned. So essentially we need to roll a 1d6, and if we roll a 1, then Hood can begin to start to implement those orders. If we roll anything other than a 1, then the order will continue in delay status. So let's roll our, and when I roll a 1d, when I need to roll a 1d6 in this module, what I do is I roll this entire ensemble of dice here uh, to resolve combat. But the only die I pay attention to is the blue straggler dice, because that is a 1d6. So I'm going to roll this entire set of 6 dice, but the only one I'm going to pay attention to is the blue one. And we rolled a 4. So the order to Hood's Corps is still in delay. And then, so we're finished with delay reduction because remember Stuart started the game having accepted his orders. So there's no more delay reduction to calculate. And now we're going to determine what happens to the order that, or what will the process be of implementing the order that Bragg gave to Buckner. So we'll go to our acceptance chart again, and we're rolling on this -1 column here, so it's going to be a 2d6. So we have that right here. We rolled a 2. Not good. Order distorted and thrown away. So one way to interpret that in these circumstances is just that Bragg was not able to find Buckner at headquarters. So basically the issue, the order didn't get issued. So so we'll try again on the next turn. We'll have to start the process all over again. So we're through with the command phase. Now we're at the movement and close combat phase. No straggler recovery markers to place. So now we're at the movement and close combat phase. So let's take a look at Stuart's division, because we're finally going to launch the attack by Stuart's division against Van Cleve's division up here. Now I think I mentioned in a previous video that I had made the Stuart's plan to do a close combat on this hex here a little bit more unpalatable by moving a detachment of artillery in the hex. Some other options I could do would be to I could extend some of these brigades' firepower out to a wider range of hexes and try to bring more fire into the hex. But so for instance, the way I would, just by way of illustration, the way I would do that is I would maybe I should say I am respecting the fact that even though I'm not playing with these units, they are throwing, in particular, Grouse's brigade here is throwing a zone of control into these 2 hexes, and which would actually make it, would not allow me to extend some of Brown's firepower into this hex and then move it here. To bring A plus B level of firepower into this hex, because once you put units into an enemy zone of control, with the one exception of close combat, the only move that unit that moved into the zone of control is allowed to make is to move into a hex completely out of any enemy zone of control. So if I were to put any Confederate units here, they would not be allowed to move from here to here, because I'd be moving from one enemy zone of control thrown by Grouse's brigade here to a zone of control thrown by Barnes's brigade here. So my options if I'm going to try to outflank the Union left here, really my only chance of doing that is to do a close combat here. I am allowed to do that. So I'm going to continue my as the Confederate player, I'm going to continue my plan to to do a close combat into this hex to try to force them out of it, even though my chances of bringing that off are certainly decreased by the placement of the artillery into this hex, and also gives me a good chance of, just for the sake of the video, to illustrate how a close combat works. So the way a close combat works is it's done brigade by brigade, and the close combat is always resolved immediately at the end of movement. So we'll move into this. We'll take Brown's brigade here, move into the hex here, and then resolve the close combat before we move either of the two remaining brigades in Stewart's division. So we'll count movement points here. So the first step will be to move into this hex. That's 2 because we're moving into Wooded's hex. I'm just going to put Brown's strength marker here aside for a moment. So we've moved 2, and right now we've moved into enemy zone of control. This one and as well as this one. So I'm in a frontal hex side of both this. Well, this brigade is in a frontal hex side of both this brigade and this brigade here. So at this point, I would not be allowed to move here or here because I'd be moving from one enemy zone of control for another. My only allowable moves at this point would be to either go back the way I came because I'd be moving out of any enemy zone of control. I wouldn't be allowed to move here either because, again, this unit here, well, actually, let me just verify that. Actually, this unit here, this is not an enemy zone of control here. I was wrong about that before. I apologize for that because of the facing of this unit. So these are the 3 frontal hex sides of this Union Brigade here. So this would actually not have been an enemy zone of control. So I could have tried to exploit that, but it's too late now. So anyway, or my remaining legal move would be, and I am allowed to do this even though I'm, even if this were, even if this brigade here, it doesn't, but even if it did throw an enemy zone of control, a zone of control into this hex, I still am allowed to move into it for purposes of close combat. So we've moved, so just to count movement points, 2, then 3 to move into the clear hex, and 1 more for the close combat. So we've expended 4 of our possible 6 movement points left. And that's important because if at the end of close combat I'm still in this hex, I would be allowed to spend my 2 remaining movement points. I'd be allowed to spend them no matter what. So I do have some movement points remaining for Brown's brigade. So now that I'm in the hex, we're going to resolve the close combat. And the way close combat works is first you resolve just the combat losses of both sides before you roll for morale, the morale result for either side. So what we're going to do first is we're going to roll this ensemble of dice twice, but only pay attention to we're not going to pay attention to the 2 morale dice for the first 2 rolls. Let's go to our fire combat tape, our fire point determination thing. And so the first thing we're going to do is that the defenders are going to perform close combat, fire combat on the attackers. And notice when we're determining our fire points, there's special close combat columns to do that. So the defender here will have a fire level at close combat range. So we look at the 8 here. The 12 is for certain weapons types that don't apply here. So we're going to have 8 fire points for the brigade, and there's 2 units of artillery firing at close combat. So that's 4. So 8 plus 4. So So the defender is going to fire at the defending brigade is going to fire at the attacking brigade with 12 fire combat points. So we'll be in this column, rolling a 2d6 in this column right here. So let's roll our dice now. And we rolled huge. That's an 11. So that's 2.5 base level. Our rounding die says round down, so that 2.5 rounds down to a 2. But we did roll a 5 on the straggler. So let's go to our straggler table. Remember that our attacking brigade here has A morale. That's why we chose that particular brigade for this attack. But we rolled a 5, so that's and the base fire loss was 1.5 or more. It was 2.5. So we're rolling on this table, not on this one. So we're on this table. A 5 is a 1. So the end result of this, the end result of the fire combat is that Brown's brigade took 2 permanent losses and 1 straggler. So I'll mark that. And we're ignoring the morale results. Whoops, I should have moved Bate, not Brown. Everything else is the same. One moment. Yep, I should have done what I did. Just should have used a different counter. Just going to leave the strength marker under the side there, because it's Bate that has the A level fire morale. I really wish they would have put the morale level on the front of the marker. But going back to our loss chart, so Bate has the A level, so we lost. So there are 2 permanent losses. 2 permanent losses. And 1 straggler. So notice that takes us down from AB fire level to A fire level. So we'll just remove this counter here. And now I do the same thing with the Bate attacking Barnes. So that's going to be, I'm still at fire level A, so I can do 8. So we're going to do 8 fire points. So we'll be rolling 2d6 on this column. Oh, one more thing. When you're performing fire combat, and you're rolling 11 or 12, you get a low ammo marker, which affects your subsequent attacks. So let me, before I do anything else, let me get a low ammo marker. Put it there. All right, so we're going to roll 2d6 on the A column here for Bates's attack. And he rolled a 5 on the A column. So that's 1 permanent loss. The rounding die is irrelevant. And the straggler roll is a very high 6. So we're looking at this table here, and remember that Barnes has a D morale level, so we're on the D column here, and we rolled a 6, so that's 2 stragglers. So Barnes lost one permanent, suffered 1 permanent loss and 2 stragglers. All right, where's Van Cleve? There he is. So 1 permanent loss. We need to clone some of these. And 2 stragglers. All right, so that's the fire combat. We've resolved that. Now we have to resolve the morale element of the close combat. And to do that, the first step is for the attack, for the morale level of the attacking unit to be assessed. And essentially the way it works is that if as a result of that morale check I get a retreat result, then I have to retreat out of the hex that I close combated into, and the close combat is over. If my morale roll here allows me to stay in the hex, then the defender has to check his morale to see whether he's forced to retreat out of the hex or not. And then if neither side is forced to retreat, which could very well end up happening, then there's a final table that we have to resolve once and for all which of the 2 brigades has to vacate the hex. At the end of a close combat, only one of the 2 opposing brigades remains in the hex. One brigade will always be forced to retreat out of the hex by the end of the process. So first, Bates is going to check his morale, the morale effects of the fire combat, and when we roll on one modifier in the close combat, close combat is relevant to the morale roll. If the attacker on the close combat suffers a -6 level reduction in morale level for purposes of assessing their morale. So remember, Bates starts as an A, so we're going to go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So even though Bates has a morale level, for purposes of resolving this combat, we're going to roll on the D row right here. None of the other modifiers apply here. So we're going to be rolling our 2 morale dice on this row right here. So let's see what happens. And we rolled a 44 on the D, which is shaken, but notice no retreat is required. Notice that if I had anything other than A level morale, if I started with B, I'd be down here, and I would be retreating back 1, and the close combat would have then been over. So this in a nutshell illustrates why, if at all possible, you want to do your close combat with your A level rated, morale rated units, because they have the best chance of being able to remain in the hex after the fire combat. So I will put a shaken marker on Bate, but he does not have to retreat out of the hex. Now we'll do the same thing for Barnes. I keep forgetting the names of these units. Barnes, yes. Except as the defender in a close combat, he'll go down 4 levels on the table instead of 6. However, Barnes's morale starts at D, so we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and roll on this second to the last blue row right here. So we'll make the same roll. 63, interesting. So that puts us right here. Wow. Notice that, so that puts us in this column right here, disorganized back to straggle 1, but and then notice there's a double asterisk here. The double asterisk says even units qualifying above must retreat. What they mean is that if I had rolled a result on either this column or this column, I as Barnes, then I would not have had to retreat, even though it does say back 1, because for those columns, the single asterisk applies. Units stacked with unlimbered artillery may ignore the retreat result, but Barnes's morale roll was so poor that he actually, even despite the artillery, has to go back to and straggle 1. I'm just going to pull some units out of here just to get at the stacks. So this unit has to retreat 2. I think the most natural retreat result would be to go back, but to stay within command radius of Van Cleve. So rather than retreat along the road, well, actually this would still, let's see, this would be 1, 2. Oh yeah, so I think this is the most natural retreat result, just to retreat along the road. I think he should have lost his AB level fire marker as well. He went down below A, so I'm going to delete that. Now, the artillery also has to retreat in these circumstances. Things will work a little bit different in fire combat when you have artillery stacked under a brigade, but in the case of a close combat retreat, I believe that all units in the hex have to retreat out of it. And in this situation, the artillery doesn't take strength losses off the table like brigades do, except what it has to do is, but it does have to retreat. So the first step in doing that will be it will have to flip over to its limbered side, and whenever artillery units limber, either in an enemy zone of control or in a close combat hex, they have to roll on something called the gun loss table, which is right here. It's a very simple table. You roll a 1d6, and whatever you roll determines how many gun points are lost as a result of the retreat. So I'm remembering that our morale result here was a 63. I'm going to roll a 1d6, so I'm just going to focus on the blue die here. Rolled a 2, so no gun points were lost, but they will also retreat 2. And let me put him back on the bottom, and then whoops, and then this needs to go along with him. That needs to go on the bottom, and then we'll put the low ammo marker here, and then we'll move this back into here. I think there's more to do for applying the morale results here. So let's go back to our morale table. So we rolled a 63, so he should actually be disorganized as well, and then straggle 1. So I'm going to put a disorganized marker on him as well, and then on the loss chart add another straggler. Notice also as a result of this that Barnes's brigade is one loss away, either straggler or permanent loss, from being wrecked, which has significant consequences if it engages in combat and rolls on the morale table again. So we'll talk more about wrecked status when that happens for the first time. All right, so we've resolved the close combat here, and remember that actually there's one more step to take. Units can essentially change their facing at 2 points in the sequence of play. One is during the movement phase. They can change their facing at any time, and secondly, attacking close combat units can change their facing at the end of close combat. So even if I didn't have any movement points left here, I still would be allowed to change my facing. But I am going to definitely change my facing here, because right now my frontal hex sides are these three, so I'm going to change my facing, and that doesn't cost any movement points in this game. So I'm going to go change my facing to... It's a good question. What do I want to change my facing to? I guess I want to change it to here. Now my three frontal hex sides are these three right here. So now I am able to fire into this hex right here. So really the question is that do I want to do another close combat? I would be allowed to do that because that would cost one movement, actually half a movement point along the road to enter the hex, and then another point for and then another movement point for close combat. I believe I am not going to risk another close combat because I don't want it, because a result of that could be I get thrown out of this hex and lose whatever advantage I have. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm thinking here. I'm going to stop the movement of this unit here, and I'm going to, so bait is done moving. One thing I could do, I'm a little worried about the Bates's right flank here. I mean, even though this division has low ammo and is disorganized, it still is capable, it still would be capable of moving, even if it moved here, it would have a flank shot on Barnes's brigade. A fire right along this hex side here does count as a flank shot in this situation. So Barnes's brigade would just have to move one. It wouldn't be able to unlimber its artillery. It wouldn't have enough movement points to well, no, it would have enough movement points, I think, to unlimber its artillery because it's already limbered right now. So it wouldn't have to spend 3 movement points to unlimber at the start of the movement. So it might have enough movement points. This is tricky. One thing I could do is, especially after my observation that Gross's brigade here does not have a zone of control in this hex, I could move Brown's brigade, say here, to defend Bates's right flank, and then I could bring, probably moving Stewart along with him, because remember, at the result of movement, I do have to maintain a command radius between Stewart's counter and the 3 brigades, so I do have to be mindful of that. So I could protect Bates's right flank here, or I could move Bates here, and then I'd have 2 2 fire levels against 1 here. 1, 2, 4. But I kind of hate to. I'd like to leave a brigade down here just to guard against these 2 brigades from moving up and just essentially cutting me off from the rest of my army. I am going to risk a flank shot. Oh boy. I am going to risk the flank shot. I'm very undecided here. Flank shots in this game can be deadly. But I just hate, I'm essentially like throwing brigades almost behind enemy lines here. They're going to be hard to control. But I don't want to leave a flank shot from this brigade into this brigade either. I think I know what we're going to do. I'm going to go for Brown's brigade here. I'm going to move 2, which I'm allowed to do, 4, 5 to join the hex. Well, no, but then there's still no, that's not what I want to do. There'll still be a flank shot. Okay, I'm going to take a big risk. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not going to take the big risk. I'm going to go 2, 4, 6. To protect the flank of the attack. And then I'm going to go 2, 4, making sure to change my facing. Let's see, where do I want my facing here? I want it rotated back counterclockwise 1. 2, 4. Well, these could get on the flank, although they'd be out of command radius. Actually, I can rotate it 1 even more, which I think is fine. Okay, so we're going to position it like this. Let's just verify that all 3 brigades are within command radius, because I wouldn't be allowed to. Well, I would actually be allowed to trace command radius through here, even if this was an enemy zone of control, which it isn't due to, I mean, it will be soon, but the zone of control would be canceled by the actual presence of a Confederate unit in here. So, but I could also trace it this way: 2, 4, 2, 4. So Stewart's division has met its command radius requirement. So all 3 brigades remain in command. So now my plan is, during the fire combat phase of this turn, for this unit to fire on this one, and for these 2 to fire on him. One thing I need to check in the rules is that whether this unit is allowed. I don't think this unit is allowed to change its facing when it gives when it provides defensive fire, but I will verify that before I make the next video. So now we're done with all of our movement for the Confederates, because both of the other corps and division are, in some form of awaiting orders or in delay status. So going back to our sequence of play, I apologize for some of my hesitancy there, but that was it. I hope it was interesting to watch and maybe puzzle along with how exactly I should approach it as the Confederate player. So we're done with movement and close combat. Ammo resupply. Now, this is something that the Confederate player will want to be thinking about, because if Barnes's brigade is suffering from low ammo, so this is the phase where, in the Union side of the turn, where that brigade could possibly be resupplied with ammo, and then the low ammo marker would be removed. But there's no ammo resupply to do for the Confederate side. So now we're in the fire combat phase. Oh, and I do actually have to check on this right now. So first, the non-phasing player gets to fire, and then the phasing player gets to fire. I'm pretty sure that the defender does not get to change its facing prior to non-phasing player fire combat. But I'm just going to verify that, because it's really important right now whether that's allowable or not. And I don't want to get it wrong. It looks like the only time the non-phasing player is allowed to change their facing is after the full resolution of close combat. So if I had decided to do, well, I won't go into the hypothetical. So long story short, and this is really bad news for the Union, Dick's brigade here is not allowed to change its facing during this phase of the combat, which means that... Oh, wait. Let's just... Oh, wait, what am I saying? Dick's brigade will be able to perform fire combat into this brigade right here. This is in a rear hex side from Dick's perspective, so he can't fire here, but he can fire here, which is fine. So first we're going to do the non-phasing fire into Clayton's brigade here. Clayton has C-level morale. I shouldn't have left him flipped. And he's firing into a frontal hex side of Clayton. So we'll go to our fire combat tables. This will be fire level A at a range of 1, so 4. So we're on the 4 column here, right here. So we'll roll our fire combat die. So we rolled a 9 on the 4. That's a 1. The straggler dice is irrelevant. Sorry, the rounding dice is irrelevant. Straggler 5. Go to our straggler table. We're on this table right here because the base fire loss was a 1. So C-level morale 5 is a 1. So 1 permanent loss and 1 straggler is suffered by Clayton. Oops, that's not what I want. So one permanent loss and one straggler. So Clayton is still at potentially AB fire level, though not able to fire at that level out of one hex. Oh, and now in the morale roll of 31, so we're on the C level, no modifiers apply. Most importantly, it's not a flank target. So C 31 is no effect, so no morale effect here. Now the last thing I need to do is, since there was my divisional leader face the fire as well, so I do have to roll on the leader loss chart, which is where leader loss chart right here. So we roll 2d6, and we'll see what happens. So we're done with that. So we're going to roll our 2d6. Rolled a 4, yikes. Oh, no effect, just made it. So Stewart the leader was not affected by being involved in that combat. That's all the non-phasing fire that the Union player can perform. Just going to verify that. Yes, I mean right now any Union unit is eligible to perform fire combat, not just the the units up here, but for reasons we've discussed already, the no other fire combat by the Union is possible here. So now we're going to do the phasing player fire combat, and here what we're going to do is we're going to Clayton will have a level of fire here, and as well as Bates. But when we calculate the morale effects on Dick, we'll go down 6 on the morale table, 6 levels, because Dick Bate is taking a flank shot on Dick here. So let's go back to our fire combat table and fire points. So we're doing 2 levels of A at close range, so that's 8 fire points. So we're on the 8 table. And the morale rating of the defending unit here is C, if I remember right. It is. Not a good roll for the shooter, so roll of 4 on the 8 column is 1 hit. The rounding dice is irrelevant because our base result is a whole number. Straggler roll of 2 on the C probably isn't going to amount to much. Let's see, C2, nothing. And then a morale roll of 31 isn't going to amount to anything either, but we'll just confirm that. 31 falls in. Oh, we have to go down 6 though, or yeah, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're back down here. 31 is shaken, but nothing else. So very unfortunate for the Confederacy. No retreat result. That's what the Confederates are really hoping for there, is to disrupt this division even further. He does get a shaken result, and so we will put that here, and then we'll put Van Cleve back on top. Whoops, I didn't do that right. Oh, I forgot to count the 1 unit of this is something I'll have to fix in between videos. I forgot to count the 1 unit of artillery in the non-phasing fire here, and that also would have made it very difficult for for the brigade here to have to retreat as well. So I flubbed that a bit. I'll have to, like I said, I'll fix that in between the videos. Now the one remaining thing to do is Van Cleve also has to roll on the leader loss table as well. So we'll roll a 2d6. Rolled a 5, no effect. So Van Cleve survives the combat as well. And that's, oh, and then there's one more fire combat to resolve here. Although I just realized that one of the, just in assessing line of sight from this hex to this hex, one of the two hex sides is wooded. I'm just going to have to take a quick look at the line of sight rules to see whether there is line of sight there. This is one of those things that vary from one game system to another, so it can make it hard to remember in any particular game system how that works. Let's see. Hex sides allow LOS if the unit could see through at least one of the hexes adjacent to the hex side, except in the case where one of the hexes contains an enemy unit. So actually I neglected to do is this unit could have also fired on this one. So let's just, so first this unit will fire on this one, and then this one will fire on this one. So let's see, so Brown's morale level is C. So let me start by just looking at at Barnes's loss chart here, loss chart information. So he's still at A fire level. The artillery is in Barnes's hex is limbered, so it will not be able to fire. So A fire level from 2 hexes at a 2 hex range is 2 fire points. And when there's low ammo, I think it's halved. It doesn't say on the chart, but I'm pretty sure low ammo halves the fire points. So it's really, we're rolling on this one column here. Morale, a retreat result would still be possible here, so it's definitely still worth doing. So we're going to be rolling on the one column here. Though we're not going to get it. So a 3 on the one column is no effect. These M results here, that means you check morale even though there are no losses. Whenever there's like a numerical loss here, you always roll on morale. But these M's mean check morale even though there was no strength point loss. So no strength point loss, rounding dice is irrelevant, straggler, can't, well, we'll check just to make sure because it is C morale. So rolled a 3. Oh, does suffer one straggler. So Brown does suffer a straggler. Still at AB fire level though. And the morale result is a 24. That's not going to amount to anything, even for a C. Nope, we're in the no effect column here. All right, so now Brown will fire A level here. Something I could have done with Brown, well, I'll, in the interest of just, the video's already long, so I think I'll just skip what I was about to say. So, so Brown will fire A level back at a range of 2, but they're not under a low ammo result, so we're firing with 2 fire points. So we're on the 2 column here. Not a great roll here either. So 2 on the 5 is morale -1. So what that means is, well, I'll explain what that means in a moment when we check morale. Rounding dice is irrelevant. Straggler 2, I don't think that results in any stragglers for, oh, actually, oh, but we add 1 to the die if it's disorganized. So it's actually a 3. Ooh, this is big, I think. And Barnes has D level morale. So 3, oh, it would have been 1 anyways. And you know what? That is an, wait, yeah, 3. So that will be enough to wreck Barnes. That puts him here, because now we filled up all the boxes with combat losses up to the check mark, which means that now, as long as, so until stragglers are recovered, Barnes is able to recover stragglers, Barnes will always be considered wrecked for purposes of checking morale, although he won't be in this particular combat here. But any subsequent and that means we also need to place there might be a special marker for this. I just used the lost one here this indicates that one brigade of Van Cleve's 3 brigades is wrecked, and that can have an effect even on the combats of Beatty's brigades and Dick's brigades in the future. The fact that Van Cleve that Barnes, which is also in Van Cleve's division, is wrecked. In other words, it can affect the morale of the entire division, not just Barnes's brigade. So Barnes is now wrecked, and our morale result was a 34. But we're going to start with a C and go up 1. Due to the result on the fire combat, it was an M-1, right? Yeah, it was an M-1. So we go up 1 from a C, but since it's disorganized, we're going to go down 3. So that's a net result of down 2 levels. So now we're at the D level, but we rolled a 34, and so that's just another shaken result. And if a unit is already disorganized, shaken does not further, it doesn't, the next level down would be routed, but getting a shaken on an already disorganized brigade does not rout it. So in effect, nothing happens as a result of the morale roll. So that now is the end of all of phasing player fire combat. So going back to our sequence of play. Oops, not that. Done with phasing player combat. Straggler recovery, this is for the phasing player, none to do, and rally. Um, in, so now it's time for the Confederate player to rally, and the only unit that can rally is um, is the Confederate player. And I won't go through all the rally rules. Suffice to say right now that units can remove at this point. The phasing player can remove a shaken uh, uh, marker, even if they're next to the enemy. So, um, and generally speaking, the way rallying in this game works is that if you suffer a morale result as like shaken during the as the attacker, you're always going to go down a level from that at the end of the turn. However, any morale results suffered by the defender, for instance, in this case here, they persist into the next turn and only go down a level at the end of the upcoming phase. So in other words, so when the Union phase starts, Barnes's brigade here will start being disorganized, and at the end at the end of the Union phase, it will be able to go in the rally phase. It will be able to go from disorganized to shaken. So we're done with the rally. So that's it for the Confederate side of the 1500 turn. Overall, I would have to say this was a very good turn for the Confederates. It did manage to get at the to break up Van Cleve's division, and now Barnes's division here is disorganized and suffering from low ammo. So it's not going to be very and wrecked. So it's not going to be very combat effective in the future. So when we play the Union side in the next video, we'll have to figure out on when we're wearing our Van Cleve hat what we're going to do to counter this situation. So I'm going to stop the video here, and thank you for watching.